It's time to reveal a national scandal. British taxpayers are sending billions of pounds abroad to pointless woke projects while we're told there's a £22 billion black hole. What I'm about to tell you paints a picture of, in my view, government-sponsored fraud, corruption and waste that spans decades. Are you ready? You sent £1.4 billion to refurbish the High Commission in Nairobi. This included replacing lighting and their fire alarms. Does that sound like value for money to you? You spent £15.5 million to set up climate-smart jobs in Uganda. There is 133 grand to monitor the Afghan Taliban's narcotics ban, £50,000 to study the health of shrimps in Bangladesh. You sent 25 million quid to support green urban growth in Somalia. Pounds combating disinformation in Ethiopia. I mean, what will they discover there? Maybe there wasn't a famine. You know, maybe it was all just a big con by Oxfam, although to be fair, it wouldn't be the worst thing Oxfam has done. And then there's 8.6 million quid supporting renewable energy in Indonesia. Well, let's look a little bit closer to home now, shall we? Whilst pensioners freeze to death, people can't afford to have kids or afford to live in a squalid bedsit in Slough.
It's Keir Starmer here. How's the last few weeks, months been for you, though?
I'm so cold. I don't know what to do anymore.
As the UK grapples with freezing winter temperatures, Labour finds itself at the centre of a growing controversy. Accused of sending billions of pounds in foreign aid while pensioners at home face financial hardship. The Labour government, led by Sir Keir Starmer since July 2024, has set aside a staggering £13.7 billion for international development projects in the upcoming financial year, earmarking an additional £500 million for foreign aid. Critics, particularly from the Conservative Party, have raised concerns about the government's priorities, pointing to the stark contrast between its overseas spending and the growing struggles of pensioners in Britain. This winter, many pensioners have been left out in the cold, both literally and figuratively, as Chancellor Rachel Reeves made deep cuts to winter fuel payments in her October budget. These cuts come at a time when older citizens are already grappling with surging energy bills, compounded by recent hikes in council tax rates. Under Labour, local authorities have been given the green light to increase council tax rates by up to tens, well above the usual cap of 4.99 without a public referendum. These increases are seen as a heavy burden on many pensioners who are already on fixed incomes. Meanwhile, the government's foreign aid spending continues to climb, drawing ire from critics who argue that domestic issues should take precedence. Tory MP Kevin Hollinrake has been vocal in his criticism, pointing to the government's apparent disregard for pensioner welfare while prioritizing international commitments. Speaking to The Telegraph, Hollinrake said, Labour has snatched away the winter fuel allowance and is forcing councils to hike up council tax to fund their new jobs tax. Yet, despite Sir Keir Starmer's election promise of not a penny more in foreign aid, they're sending billions overseas. Hollinrake's comments reflect the sentiment among many in the Conservative ranks, who believe that the government's focus on international development is out of step with the needs of vulnerable groups at home. Labour's views on pensioners have been laid bare, he added. They'd rather leave them out in the cold than secure their financial well-being while sorting out pay settlements for union barons and funneling money to foreign countries. Meanwhile, the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FDO, has reported significant reductions in aid to several countries between 2019 and 2023, including Pakistan, Ethiopia, Syria, Sudan, and Yemen. These reductions have led to tensions surrounding the allocation of the UK's foreign aid, with many questioning the sustainability and effectiveness of such large-scale spending in light of domestic financial pressures. Foreign Secretary David Lammy has ordered a series of reviews into UK aid policy, and his response to these concerns will likely shape the direction of Labour's international aid commitments in the coming months. However, until those reviews are complete, the government faces increasing pressure to balance its international aspirations with the pressing financial needs of its citizens at home. As the debate rages on, it remains to be seen whether Labour can reconcile its ambitions abroad with the real-world needs of pensioners struggling through the harsh winter months.
Just as a little segue, because I asked Jonathan Reynolds about it, do you have a view on this Chagos Islands giveaway? Because the idea of spending £18 billion on it and then having a massive black hole in the defence budget seems to me to be rather contradictory.
Why do you have to buy what you've already got?
I don't know.
I mean, if you already own it, why do you have to buy it? And this is an absurd situation. I mean, Diego Garcia has been unquestionably British territory. In fact, back in the 1960s, Britain paid £3 million to the Mauritians to secure forever this territory. It belongs to Britain. And just because there was a non-binding opinion from an international court some years ago doesn't mean that Britain now has to pay upwards of £10 billion to keep what it's always had.
Also, we found out that one of the officials ruling on that judgment in the court was linked to the Chinese Communist Party. Oh, what a coincidence, Mr. Abbott.
Well, Camilla, this is the problem. I mean, in countries like Britain and Australia, we think of international courts as if they are the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council.
Yes.
They are not courts of justice. They are courts of politics, often courts of politics driven by aggressive dictatorships with a hatred of the West. And we should be determined to do justice. We should be determined to be decent. But that doesn't mean we should be the slaves of these global tribunals.
The UK's willingness to negotiate a settlement with Mauritius over the future of the Chagos Islands has raised sharp questions over national priorities, sovereignty, and the influence of international legal institutions. Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott's blunt assessment, "Why do you have to buy what you've already got?" captures the frustration felt by many in Britain and beyond. The proposed deal, which could see the UK hand over billions to Mauritius as part of a negotiated settlement, has ignited debate over both the fiscal and strategic wisdom of such a move. Reports suggest that Britain may spend upwards of £188 billion to settle the Chagos Islands dispute. This comes at a time when the UK faces a defence budget crunch, with funding shortages affecting key military capabilities. The paradox of cutting defense spending while simultaneously agreeing to costly settlements over strategic overseas territories highlights contradictions in Britain's priorities. One of the most troubling aspects of this episode is the degree to which international legal bodies such as the ICJ and the UN General Assembly have pressured Britain into reconsidering its claim. Critics argue that these institutions are often influenced by political agendas rather than purely legal principles. The ICJ's 2019 advisory opinion that Britain should end its administration of the islands, though not legally binding, provided diplomatic ammunition to Mauritius and other nations advocating for decolonization. Beyond financial and legal concerns, there are serious national security implications. Diego Garcia, the U.S. military base on the Chagos Islands, is a crucial strategic asset in the Indo-Pacific, used for surveillance, intelligence gathering, and as a launchpad for operations in the Middle East and beyond. Any deal that alters UK sovereignty over the islands risks introducing instability or granting China greater influence in the region, should Mauritius decide to make its own strategic alignments. The broader concern is the precedent such a deal sets. While Britain is eager to demonstrate commitment to the rules-based international order, history suggests that international legal institutions do not apply their rulings uniformly. Nations such as China have disregarded ICJ rulings on territorial disputes in the South China Sea with little consequence. The UK, on the other hand, appears willing to capitulate in the name of legal propriety, even at a staggering financial and strategic cost. The fundamental question remains: if Britain caves to international pressure on the Chagos Islands, what territory or claim could be next? And more crucially, at what point does adherence to international rulings transition from responsible diplomacy to a naive forfeiture of national interest? As the government considers its next steps, it must weigh whether this is a necessary compromise for global reputation or an unnecessary and costly capitulation that could have lasting consequences for British sovereignty and strategic influence in an increasingly uncertain world. Thanks for watching. If you found this analysis insightful, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our Telegram community for more discussions on global geopolitics and strategic affairs.